No, I'm
Perfect.
And it is 10 o'clock, and this is Lancaster Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour number 105. My name's John Kelsey. It's gonna be a show and tell morning. We have some people who've offered to give us stuff today. I know Clifton is going to explain Morse tapers finally, and Don has a slideshow, and I see Bert has his hand up, and anybody else who wants to show stuff, please click your raise hand so you pop up to the top of my screen and I don't lose you. I'll also see you if you wave your hand around. Before we get started, I was curious, how many of you all are going to go to the AAW symposium in Chattanooga? One. And nobody else? Just one out of this whole screen? Okay, let me ask you this. There's no digital component. There's no Zoom, no Zoom or any other kind of thing being offered this year. If there was, would you want to do that? Would you attend virtually as we've done in the past 2 years? How many hands would do that? 1, 2, 3. Wow, that's most of the screen. Okay, how much would you pay for that for a digital event that paralleled the actual symposium? Would you pay $50? No hands. Oh, a few hands.
Well, wasn't it 50 bucks a year
I'd do
ago,
60 bucks tops.
60 tops? Would anybody go 100?
Yeah.
Should be an auctioneer, John.
I would. Well, I just want to know. I'm curious because they're not offering a digital option, and I'm kind of become a specialist in the digital option, and so I'm curious as to why. And I know that the argument usually is, well, we don't want to lose the revenue of people who would otherwise come and pay full boat. But I know I'm not going to go and pay full boat, and they're not in line to get any money from me this year because there's nothing there for me to buy. I would pay for a digital option if there was one, and from this screen, I see a lot of you would too. But I'm not sure you guys are a representative sample either. I mean, most of you click in here every week, so you're digital beings anyhow. You're not resisting your computer and your Zoom call. I think
I would assume that
John,
I would assume most of us aren't going to attend because of the issue with COVID.
Well, that's my reasoning. Yes, I'm afraid of crowds. I've had COVID and I don't want it again.
Hey, John.
John, I would say that if they gave a good representative of what they're going to show, would sway me depending on how much money I would be willing to spend. You know what I'm saying? It would have to, if they would talk about, we're going to do these people and times and places, I could look and say, oh, I can hit all of these. It's worth it. Because you're not going to be able to buy a la carte. You're going to pay a price.
Well, you could pay a day price or you could pay a full schedule price. I mean, there's a lot of ways it could run if you start to think about it, but since they aren't doing anything, it's all kind of abstract. But I'm just curious.
Like
but
to
I
know
can
what you're getting for your money up front.
Yeah, everybody would like to see that would of course be part of it. But you do that if you're going to attend the actual physical event. You get the whole program in advance. You get the whole schedule book. So you would want to, I guess, if you were offering a digital alternative, you would do something digitally that gave you the same accounting of what you'd get. Are most of you guys paying $10 for demos? Are you comfortable paying $10 for a demo? Can we see some more hands for that too?
10 or 20.
Do you ever pay $20 for a demo? Okay, so $10 is the going price, but sometimes we'll go to 20 for the right demo.
Or $15. One of the
15.
online guys, I think Todd Raines went to $14.95. Can you believe that? I go, come on.
John, was there any feedback from last year's online AAW online symposium? So, I mean, did they make money out of it, or was it a loss to do it?
I have no information. I wish I did. It hasn't shown up anywhere that I've seen. I don't peruse the minutes of the board, so they might be buried down there somewhere. But they don't put up very informative minutes either.
Okay. Because
the
I
two
thought
worldwide symposiums they had were much better than the AAW symposiums. I wouldn't spend any money on the AAW one online. They didn't do a very good job.
What made them better, Bill? What did they do that was good?
They had them run right. They were just done better. on time. All I can say is they're done better. I enjoyed the worldwide, but the AEW I just didn't care for.
Yeah, I didn't attend the worldwide. I kind of wish I had.
They were very good.
I attended the worldwide. I think it was good during the symposium, but the AAW symposium was better prepared. They prepared this booklet, introduced the demonstrators, gave background information about the demonstrators and their work. Also, the demonstrators put together some sources for material they used. So it was a good package. The worldwide symposium was just a demonstration, but nothing else, or demonstrations, but nothing else. So I think the AEW did a good job, and maybe it could be improved. Of course, some people had problems with getting into the meetings and stuff like that. But all in all, I think the AEW symposium was great.
Anybody else on this before we move on?
I found that a lot of the additional things they had at the AEW were just didn't work or were just lousy. When it came to the vendor pieces, you tried to find some of that and it either worked or it didn't work, or you couldn't find people where they were supposed to be. The basic demonstrations, I think, were fine, but all the rest of it I thought was terrible, to be completely honest.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. Oops.
No, this is Ron. We talked yesterday.
Yeah.
I talked to Rick, and one thing you have to keep in mind with these types of remote demos, there is a cost involved. We talked about maybe putting in a remote demo at the Mid-Atlantic. Well, of course, you've got to pay for the internet connection. But the other thing, probably the bigger part of it, is going to be the demonstrators themselves. They don't want to demonstrate free of charge. So they're paid to come to the symposium, but if they're going to be online, that's another issue. They want to be compensated for that as well. So if you want to tune in from your living room, you need to pay a little bit for that to compensate the demonstrator.
Yeah, I agree. That would be the only way it would make sense. But there's no digital alternative being offered to the Mid-Atlantic either. It's just to show up in person or nothing.
No, but we're willing to talk about it. So we haven't addressed that in depth at this point.
Thank you. Okay, Clifton, where are you? Are you ready with your Morse taper demo? You're muted, buddy.
How about that?
That's much better.
Am I back?
You are.
Okay. Sure, I can do that if you'd like.
Yes. Show us
Okay.
what you were going to show, what you told me about, and show us your video.
I am going to share the screen, and this came up when I did is my little goblet up there.
Yep.
Okay. So when we did that, I answered some questions about turning the stem, which was I used Morse taper collets, and that's when turning the wood Morse tapers came up. So I said I would just do a quick little demonstration. These are some wood Morse tapers I've made over the years, a little sandy mandrel. This is one of my little favorites. It's a traveling buffer. So I put this on my live center, pinch it between there and traveling buffer with a wood Morse taper. This one is a piece of plastic from a coffee container. This is also threaded onto my live center and pinched between there so I can make a so anyways, this little guy here just helps me to turn these little buttons for my throwing top. And again, it's a wood Morse taper. So they come in handy. Here's my little Morse taper collets. The price is right, really, is what it amounts to. They're not for everything, and obviously they have their limitations. But
what are their limitations, Clifton?
Well, they're small. They're for small stuff. You're not going to
Okay.
use this for, you know, for large items, but when you need a holding something to hold with, you can turn. I mean, these are just obviously the Morse taper. Some of these, I don't even remember what I was using them for, but
Yeah.
I can always cut this off, glue a piece
Yeah.
on, and turn it for my next project. So that's why I saved them. So one of the things about the taper is, even though it's a Morse taper, they are different as to where they fit, you know, how far they slide out of your headstock. So you get to decide. And what I do is I caliper the inside of my taper and turn a dowel. And you can turn these between centers. For demonstration purposes, it's certainly easier to use your chuck as your third hand. And then I just turn this into a dowel, and using that calipered mark.
Now, is that caliper of yours bright red so you can find it in the chips?
It is, but also since I take these to classes and I hand them out, it helps me to find them.
They all come back.
At the end of the day. Yeah, nobody wants that. So then since I calipered this and I calipered this, I slide this down and I make a mark where it fits. And then I make another mark towards the end and I caliper that mark. So now I've got that mark, and that mark goes right here. So I do bring my tailstock up, as you can hear, kind of needs it. And it doesn't take a whole lot. So that's the size I need. And now the easiest thing to do is either come here point to point from here to the end, or if you really wanted to, you could hollow this middle section out. So the only bearing surface is going to be here and here. That works, but as you can imagine, it does give it a little bit of flex. So that's kind of it. The key there is the comparative measurements. You know, taking this measurement, the difference between them, and then cutting a straight line. And then you would take this, turn it around. I think I went a little too far at this end. You certainly make sure you turn this off before you test your taper. So then you would turn this around and clean this all up. You know, you once you have your taper where you want it, and believe it or not,
then you make whatever you want out of the rest of the piece of wood. I got it.
This one just happened to turn out this time. Why? I don't know, because it doesn't always. But
so, are you going to see a burnish mark when you put that taper on there and twist it? Is that going to show you where it's rubbing?
So that's what I'm absolutely. And I just happen to have an extension, so I use it. If I don't, what I do is I just pop the live center out, run this up. Obviously, any of this is done by hand, you know, to get your burnish marks. And then when you see your marks, you just barely brush that part of it off. And so by the time you're done.
And what are good woods for this?
Well,
I'd use maple, I would think.
If you're doing it as a demonstration, you use poplar, because you're setting yourself up for success. If you use things like lignum vitae, you really have to be precise. So here's the piece. Now I just true it up. Base it off, whatever I need to do. One of the fellows I turn with hollows this out, and then he glues his tagua nuts into this little recess and turns his little tagua nuts into little vases and vessels. So that's it. I mean, it's like I said, it's the key is just the comparative measuring it out, measuring the diameter you need for your lathe, how far away it is, measuring the smallest diameter, and connecting the dots.
Let me take the spotlight off you and go back to a gallery, and let's see if we got any questions or other people with more observations on Morse tapers. What do we got out here? Anybody, any questions for Clifton?
Yeah, I have a comment. I made a bunch of Morse tapers without any measurements at all. What I did was I took a little block of wood, 3 inches square, and glued a strip of wood onto it that was just thicker than the half of the radius of the large diameter of the taper. And then you take a Morse taper tailstock item or whatever that fits in and lay that onto your block and glue the second piece up against that taper. And then as you turn, you make yourself a little gauge. And as you turn your piece down, you make it so that your gauge fits on. And they're very simple to make.
They absolutely are. And my problem with that is I never have that when I need it. So my calipers are here, my tools are here. It takes less than 5 minutes and I'm done. And it would take me 5 minutes to find my gauge. So I agree 100% that works. The other thing that I think with these is if you're teaching a group of students, this is a practice piece and it helps them, one, learn how you teach, and it also helps them make something that's useful if it's useful for the class. I've had the students turn these when we're doing pepper mills, so they have their own mandrel. I've had them turn these when we were doing bottle stoppers, so they had their own mandrel. But absolutely, 100 ways to do the same thing. That is the truth.
It seems to me that's an excellent way to make your own mandrels. I mean, I make a lot of mandrels and hold them in the scroll chuck. But now that I know how to make a Morse taper, I'm going to start making Morse taper mandrels.
And the price is right.
Yeah, I like that part too. Any more comments or from anybody else on this?
Yeah, Clifton, one of the things that most people don't realize is that a Morse taper is not that hard of a taper. It's only about 1 plus a little bit degrees. So it's not tapered that much.
True. When I was doing this for the class, for the youth group, one of my mentors gave me a sheet of paper and it had all of the numbers like the rise and the run or whatever it was. And I'm saying, I got a bunch of 9-year-olds and I'm going to try to have a measure 0.9 something something. And I said, there's got to be a better way. And so that's when I came up with basically what I call comparative measuring. And so anyways, I think it's a useful tool to have in the background. And one day you'll be turning, like with the that goblet. By the time I got to the stem part of it, I didn't even think. I just said, yeah, absolutely, that will be a Morse taper collet chuck, and I moved on to the next step. Because it's all problem solving.
Sure.
That's how I solved that problem. Anyways, not to take up any more time, I just thought that would be a fun little project.
Well, thank you very much, Clifton. If there's any other comments, let's have them, and then we'll move on. Okay.
I really like the idea of using your extender or adapter. I have like a 3-to-2 adapter for my 2436 for testing. That's awesome. Good tip.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah. I've got a short thing as well. Can you spotlight me, John?
I sure
Kai
can.
speaking.
Yep,
Ah.
go.
Hi. Okay, seems to be working. I've got one of these collet chucks that that's the collet, which goes into here, and then that
You have to
fits
lift it up.
into-
We're not seeing it. You have to lift it up.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that goes into here, and that has got a thread to fit on the spindle, and then I turn these little wooden adapters that have got a 10 that fits into the collet, and then
Is that 10 end tapered or straight?
No, it's straight. It's straight
Okay.
as the collet is straight as well. It's half inch, a half inch collet, and then this is half inch as well on this end. And I turn several of them. I have them ready for different jobs, and then I put them in, tighten the nut of the collet, and then you can turn the end to whatever size you want to have, or to a hole into it if you want to glue something into it, like a nut or whatever. So that is quite handy as well. But of course, it's you need to have a collet chuck to do that. And what Clifton showed is easier and uses less technical equipment. But if you have a collet chuck, that is a good option to keep several of these ready. And then whenever I need one for a quick job, I can take them, turn them to size, glue something on them, make them shorter, whatever. And I've always lots of scrap wood in the workshop that I can use for these little wooden things. Yeah, so that's just what I wanted to add.
Thank you, Kai. Very helpful. Anybody else lurking out there on this? Okay, looks like we got them all.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, looks like Bert's here next. What do you have, Bert?
Okay, I was working on a little project for a person that does some stitching. So this is a little needle minder. It's a little offset duck. And I went on to the New Zealand, South Auckland Woodturners, and I found this image of a duck with tail feathers. And as it turned out, I had to make a whole handful of them in order to get the tail feathers. I don't know if you can see the tail feathers on that one, but that's more challenging than it looks. I mean, it's only a 10 millimeter offset to get the offset little duck, but to get the tail feathers on there, I ended up with a half a dozen of them that looked like this, because just about the time you're getting ready for to get close to the tail feathers, the wood will chip out, and you just got to take the tail right off. I was just curious if anybody else has ever tried making these little ducks with tail feathers.
It's a cute little project.
In there. Yeah, they have a little magnet in there for a needle minder for the stitchers and stuff. They need a place to put their pins and needles on their project. And a lady bought one off me about 2 or 3 years ago, or pre-COVID. And I talked with her a couple of weeks ago, and she said, "Do you have any more of those? Because I just love it." She wants to buy these for Christmas presents for her fellow stitchers. So I had to go ahead and try and make some more with the little tail feathers. It's not as easy as it looks. It's a simple offset turning project, but trying to get the tail feathers on, that was a challenge.
Hey, Bert, do you have any kind of drawings that show the dimensions on that?
There's no real dimensions on it. It's whatever size the piece of wood is. I mean, I just grabbed a chunk of wood and whatever size it was. Like some of these are pretty small, but if you go to South Auckland Woodturners, there's a little sketch and a write-up on how you actually turn it. It's pretty simple. You just start with on centers, turn it around, and these particular ones are 10 millimeters offset, and then you turn the neck and the head. So it's pretty straightforward from a turning point of view. But the actual turning the feathers, everything is really, really good until you get down to where the feathers are. And if you have the slightest little vibration or the slightest little misstep with your tool, the feathers disappear intermittently and they look like crap. So like I say, it took me 6 of them to get a couple of them that turned out right.
Yeah,
but it's fun.
Why wouldn't you just turn a spindle with a couple of beads and attractive little things in the offset like that? Because it's just to be a handle anyway. It doesn't have to be a duck.
Well, exactly. It can be. I just put a duck and it's whimsical because I turn the head sideways, put the beak on sideways, and they're all different, and a little bit of hat with a bit of an angle on them. And you're right. There could be beads on here. It could be just a solid shaft where you could add some more pieces for color. And yeah, it's just whimsical.
The point is just to be a handle to pick it up. Am I right about that?
Yeah, because they move it around.
They move it around, yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize what the magnet was all about. Now that I see what you're doing, I could use that. I have a couple of places where I got paper clips and sewing needles and other things.
Yeah, paper clips would be perfect. I mean, you can make them a little bigger so you have room for more paper clips. But yeah, you're right. They're just a whimsical thing, and but trying to make them with feathers, that was the challenge.
They could even collect up little magnets. Sorry, too many at once. Go for it, somebody else.
Bert, your camera's trying to focus on your background because it's more contrasty and sharp. Your face isn't as sharp. You see your background is sharp as the pin. You may want to change your position or something. Your camera keeps fighting. And this is a learning for all of you guys. The camera is looking for the sharpest background it can find. And if it's not your face, you're not going to be sharp. So.
Okay, well, how's.
There you go.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. It was trying to focus on that wheel or something. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's good. That's great feedback because this is just a cheap camera. I should be using one of my other cameras that has I can turn the autofocus off, and anytime there's movement with this camera, it gets a little fuzzy.
Yep.
I'm going to make some of those things that aren't a little duck, but are some other shapes, and so I don't have to bother about trying to raise up the tail feathers.
Well, the point I was making there is that it's fun to do offset turning, and I do lots of that, and they make all kinds of things. But trying to do something with a real thin profile on one side, that was a challenge. It was just a lot of fun to do, and I ended up trying a bunch of different tools to do it. And I'll keep the tool that finally worked to myself because I'll let other people try it first, and it's a learning process.
I'm going to take the spotlight off you and see if we got any comments out here from the gallery. Anybody else on this?
Yeah, do we have any past episodes where we have any demos on offset turning?
No. Would be nice to see one. I don't ever do it.
I could do one sometime in the future. I could do a video of it. I was going to do that. I was going to videotape this, but I had too many oopses, but maybe I should do it just so I can prove the oopses.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, offset turning, I used to do it many, many years ago, but I haven't tried it in 40 years. I would like to see a little primer of, okay, this is how this works.
Yeah. Now I'll think about this summer here. I'll put one together.
Okay. Let's see, who else we got? Any other comments on this first? I don't want to go away from the topic if there's more to say. Okay.
John.
Yes.
Can I go back to the off-center turning?
Yeah.
Can you highlight me a minute?
Yeah, I can.
Please.
Just a second. Spotlight you. Yeah, there you go.
Oh.
That's a nice piece, Don.
This is off-center turning in 3 points. You have 1, 2, and 3 marked on the top and the same on the bottom. You always make certain they add up to 4. So 1 and 4, 2 and 2, 4 and 1.
So you're basically turning on the diagonal, in effect.
Always turning like that.
Yeah. And so you turn one facet each time. Is that what happens?
Yeah, 1 pass each time and move it and turn again.
And you drill that hole first, and then you're going to mount by that, right?
That's right.
Hold it up and hold it still. Oh, that's fantastic. So
that's a nice effect.
That's
just
great.
The base of it and the top. There's a pair of those sitting on my sideboard. Thank you, John.
Is that felt on the bottom?
Yes, I put some felt on the bottom. It's green, although it shows it black on there. I find sometimes
putting felt on helps when you've got it going onto wood on wood, because if they move them about a bit, it does scratch. But although they're highly polished, I also put the felt on.
Now, I also noticed there's a metal cup in there holding the candle. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah, that's an important safety thing. I see a lot of candle things that are candle into wood, and after your third glass of wine, when you fall asleep face down on the table and that candle burns down, you can burn the whole house down. So you really want a metal cup in there.
Yes. Over here, it's part of our safety that you cannot sell anything wood for a candlestick without the brass cup.
Don, the Woodcraft magazine a while ago had a 3-point center turning for a bowl, which is similar thing, I think. I've been wanting to try it. Now you're going to make me want to go out and do it. So,
yeah.
I think
what magazine is that?
Bowman? It's the Woodcraft magazine from.
Hold up the cover since you're holding it up.
Right here, this one.
1980.
Do you know this one? Oh, come on, not that old.
Okay.
It's from March and February of this year. I mean, yep, February and March issue. It's been laying on my desk folded open to that for too many months. So.
Anybody else on this?
What was that wood, Don?
That's a bit of sycamore.
Ah, okay.
A lot like maple. Vasco, what do you have there?
Yeah, I was playing a little bit with offset turning too, and I started to do some more of my mushrooms. You can see how much it's offset. That's just a simple one, and I decided to take it a step further, and this one isn't finished yet, but there's like a double offset on this one. It adds a little more interest to just a regular mushroom. It puts a cant to the, but that one was a little more, a lot of carving had to go in this next section to make it smooth. But Dremel tool does a wonderful thing. But it came out real nice. I'm pretty pleased. I think I'm going to play some more with it.
You guys are encouraging me to try it. Bowman, what would you like to do today?
Well, I want to share my screen because I have a fun thing to show you. So I hope you call it fun. This is a Woodturners negative space sculpture. A while ago in one of the clubs, I heard somebody talk about turning something that's not practical. One guy presented, the trimming off of a bowl when you're getting bowl blank ready. And I had a bunch laying around, and then I had turned out of a big crotch piece, I had turned a kind of a platter with an edge on it, but it had a sapwood all around. Well, in a day or two, it started cracking, as you can see over here. I said, okay, I want to save the cherry in the middle, so I sawed it out with the bandsaw. I said, wait a minute, I got the beginnings of a wood sculpture. So I don't know. It was just a fun piece. So
where are you going to put that? What are you going to do? How big is it, and what are you going to do with it?
It sits about 18 inches tall. The platter was, I had to do it outboard, so it was over 16 inches from edge to edge before I cut out the heartwood. So it's sitting on my porch right now. Gets a lot of conversation. So yeah.
What's the title of it? Not a wood scrap pile?
Oh no, I like negative space. That term is a little more instructive, I think. But not a scrap wood pile. That's a good one too. I'll make that the subtitle. Hey, I also have another piece to show you all. This is a triangular piece from a burl chunk. And I turned what I thought was going to be a little bowl, and my daughter, who's an artist in her own right, said, Dad, you need to put a globe in there. So I went searching around and got myself a 5-inch globe, and now I got art supporting art. You know, how can you describe that? But this was a beautiful piece of burl. I turned it up on its, I'll show you at the bottom. I set it on its bark. And then, can you imagine the fun of trying to turn that between centers? So I bored a hole down to hit solid wood, and then I said, it's just going to stay there, and I stained it. So I've been having fun with the burl. I got the, yeah.
How fine did you sand that to, and what's the finish on it?
Walnut, Mahoney's walnut oil is what's on the finish. On the bottom, I put, the way I work with bark is I spray them with shellac very early on, try to give them a little rigidity. Rattle can shellac. And then the bottom, I stained it with dark walnut because I didn't want it to see the bare wood in here. Here, I'll show. I didn't want to see the bare wood in here. So I stained it with black walnut, and I touched it up at the bottom because I figure that's the bottom, you know. But
so
walnut oil is what I like.
How much sanding do you do on the top? What grit are you going to and all that?
I'm going to, if I get to 180, I'm about done, unless I have a lot of scratch marks. I'm not polishing it off real hard. So.
But you're seeing really fine detail here in this burl. That looks to me like it's sanded a lot finer than 180.
No, I'm not, honestly. I have grit that sometimes I go to 220 or 240, but mostly I stop at 180. You know, I don't like to polish up the wood. It's wood. I want to feel the wood, you know. But
so
thanks, John. Yeah.
So is the ball glued in there?
Oh no.
No.
It's just resting in there. It's just literally setting. As it turned out, the diameter was 5 inches exactly, not because I had planned it that way, because that's the way the wood told me. And so I turned it, and then I found a 5-inch globe. It was a blown globe.
Those are fishing floats, old-time Asian fishing floats. Yeah, net floats. They float the nets and float lines. Yeah.
If you wanted to, you could put a light bulb in there because it has an opening in the bottom where they shear them off when they blow them.
Oh, the fishing floats don't. They have a stud on the bottom so they can have a string wrapped around them to attach them to the net. And on the Pacific coast, they used to wash up all the time. I don't know if they do anymore.
Yeah, when I went looking for them, I found those, but I knew it wouldn't work because I didn't want the poke thing out the top, and I knew I wasn't going to drill a hole for the bottom. So I got a blown, I forget what they call it, a blown globe, and it just sits in there. By the way, while I got it here, this same burl has been bringing me lots of fun. I want to show this piece. Do you see the pattern in the bottom of this? Burl's great fun. You see the 3 faces, actually 4 if you look over here. I just wish I understood more about how burl actually grows. But yeah, and then I don't know if I've shown you this before. I saved a bunch of these burl. It's all from the same chunk of wood. This is that big 18 by 24 inch one I got from the local wood guy. So
well, how are you processing that in the first place? Are you chainsawing that up or bandsawing it? What are you doing?
I had to chainsaw the original piece up because, man, it was so heavy. We'd have had to use a tree lift thing to get it on my truck. So I went over it and decided what way would be best to cut it. I use a chainsaw to cut it up. And then sometimes I do on the bandsaw, depends how it is, because it can be they're out of balance by nature. And so it's a challenge to put on the lathe and turn. So these have all been turned from that same piece. And then I even tape them sometimes. And this one I wrapped it in saran wrap because I was worried about this coming apart. It goes all the way up to the top. And then I took a pipe clamp and put it around the neck too when I hollowed it out because I didn't want to lose this piece. It was too lovely. And I managed to survive thanks to Trent Bosch's stabilizer. it still was chattering and rattling a lot. So that's been my fun with the burls recently. So
Okay, end your share and let's get a gallery view and look for questions and comments. Questions and comments.
So I have two actually on the burls and how it grows and how to maximize it cut up. Cindy Droza does a great demo on that subject, and I'm not sure if that's available on her website, but I think she's actually going to do it at the AAW meeting. And then my second point was on your first negative space, so I can't really address the negative space, but there is an article in this month's AAW journal by one of our club members, Chuck Cohn, where he takes those 4 pieces from the corners and he glues them back up to make a resin-filled bowl. So he also took the approach that I shouldn't throw these away and there's something else to do with them. And I think it was actually a pretty novel idea that he's got.
thank you. I think if I ever have an accident in the shop, it'll be stumbling over one of those blanks laying by my bandsaw. I mean, they just accumulate, you know.
Could we go back to the burl just for a second?
Yeah, who's that? Oh, it's Bob.
This is
Hi.
Bob. Yeah. When you're working with burl, do you need to use CA glue a good bit? Is it like the surface? Does it? I mean, it looks so bizarre. It's the inside's probably firm, but would the outside be anything like? Does it crumble or is it soft? What is it like?
It's quite crumbly. Do you like that word? It's quite crumbly.
I don't know if I like it. I thought used it.
The word is crumbly. You have to be a little careful. The bark will chip off pretty easy. I will admit to gluing 1 or 2 pieces back with CA glue but I try to wrap them, you know, so that they won't come off. But you never know, and when you start hauling out, you don't know how deep those crevices go, and suddenly you got this big void, and man, it's just even tape around sometimes in the hole. I've had a big piece fly off. Fortunately, it was big enough. I just stuck it back on with CA, and it usually fits pretty good. So it can be hidden rather well.
Thank you.
Well, one thing about burls with cracks in them and so forth, they're kind of created naturally. And if they come apart, that's okay. You don't really need to glue them back in all cases.
Sometimes I let that be part of the design. I just, if a piece comes off, I look at it and I go, okay, that's all right, missing. You're right. You're absolutely right, Ron.
I saw the Cindy Drozda burl presentation when she did it down in Pittsburgh at the AAW there. And I was just amazed by it. She really did a nice job with presentation of the burl and what the form is on the inside of the burl, and if you cut it one way or another. So if you get a chance to see that, I really highly recommend it also.
Well, I trust Cindy greatly, so I will go look for her. Hopefully I can find that because, yeah, I got one that I need to not fool with too much. I need to be able to do it. So.
Well, I'm back to a gallery view. Who else? Oh, we got a little bit of time here. Who's got who'd like to show some stuff? Oh, Randy, you wanted a minute. What do you got there, Randy? And I see Harvey as well. Let's start with Randy.
John, I have a question. I'm going to do a reverse interview. Do you think that your experience and knowledge with Zoom is an extension of your publishing jobs or experience?
I think I learned once I learned the technique of editing videos, that comes straight out of my publishing experience. Editing videos is easy for me. And the rest of it, I'm a journalist. You know, I spent my young years as a newspaper journalist, so I learned how to interview people. So I ask questions. Does that go where you were trying to go?
Yeah. And I just wanted to say thank you for all the effort and all the work you do to put these things together. I know you're active on the AAW chapter leaders and many other places. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate hearing that.
Thank you, Randy, for speaking for all of us. Thanks, Randy.
No, thank you very much for that. I enjoyed that. Let me say in my own defense that I'm coming up 76 years old in 2 weeks, and so, I got to limit what I do. So I do a lot of this kind of stuff and not a whole lot else, to tell you the truth.
You got to get out there and turn wood again.
You know what? My son was over here last weekend, and he came down to the shop and saw what a mess it was, and he said, no, this is not okay. And he swept the floor with me, and after he left, I said, okay, I got it now. And I cleared off all of the surfaces in the main part of the shop, and then after I get done with you guys today, I'm going to go and clear the finishing area, get myself down to some spaces where I can work. And along the way, by the way, I've filled so far 4 big trash bags, and I think I'm going to try for 4 more.
John, we need a picture of what a shop looks like with it cleaned up. I don't think any of us know that. So.
Well, Gerald does. You ought to see Gerald's shop.
Oh, I know. He keeps showing the cleaned one. I think he's hiding from us. So.
I've seen other guys, people trained as teachers and people trained in the military generally keep a really clean shop. But then, I remember Sam Malouf's shop, the rocking chair maker. The table saw was just another surface to pile high with stuff, It was, so let's go talk to Bob Mathers. Hello, Bob. What are you going to show us? I think you're muted. We're not hearing you.
If we can do that.
Okay, here I am.
Here you are. Good.
All right. Yeah, I had a huge red oak taken down in my yard, and sad to say I didn't put the anchor seal on it like I should have, and I got so many checks. It'd been drying for months, but I did get a couple of good pieces. This is the red oak here. I bought some of the this pewter stuff. Bought several of those, and I've been making containers for potpourri. And this one turned out fairly decent. And my son asked me the other day for a scoop, so I went online and checked it out on a YouTube video, and I learned a lot.
I could see that you did.
This was my first effort, so it's not very big, but I called it my cute scoop. My wife seems to think it looks medieval. So anyway, a couple of my projects lately.
Well, let's now go back to the potpourri thing, if you wouldn't mind for a minute. What's your finish on that, and how much sanding did you do? And let's see the bottom, please.
I got it down to, actually, I turned it down to 220 and then brought it all the way down to 400. And then on the bottom, we've got this.
So that was your chucking recess, is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And what was your other question? Oh, tried and true is what I use. It's the polymerized linseed oil with beeswax is what I'm using for my finish.
Okay. Any comments or questions for Bob? That's a nice little project.
The comment I made is I used to do all recesses in the bottom like that, but then it always leaves you with a really thick bottom compared to using a a tenon, where you can cut it off and keep it thinner. Any issues with that problem with too thick a bottom?
Well, most of my stuff ends up pretty heavy. I know a lot of guys are going for the really thin walls, and I guess one of these days I'll get courageous enough. This is fairly thick. Let me see if I can get this up. Okay, yeah, it's a fairly thick piece. Comes out nice, but it is pretty hefty. Most of my stuff, I haven't gone for thin walls on most of my stuff.
Now, is it hefty because you don't know how to turn thin, or is it hefty because you like it hefty?
Mostly because I'm chicken.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with liking it hefty. There's lots of, thin is is a choice. Yeah. Nice and light is a choice. Hefty and solid and robust is also a choice.
Yeah. Well, my pieces have turned out fairly well, leaving them like this, but I guess I should, get courageous and go for a thin piece and just work on it. I enjoy doing this stuff. Like you said, I really think about your phrase one time you had mentioned that it keeps the monkeys out of your head. And I just love to do this stuff.
I'm with you on the thick stuff. I don't know what the big deal is with thin. The only thin piece I've ever turned is trying to turn out my mistakes. You know, then it gets, that's I have a couple thin pieces, but I can point to you all the mistakes that made me get it thin. So no, I like them hefty. Was that green or dry?
It was cut down. It was been drying for several months. I had it cut down back in late fall, I think, or early winter. So it's been drying out for several months. But like I said, I didn't put anchor seal on it, and that was my bad.
So it's still very green, actually, probably.
It'll dry some more.
Actually, on this one here, I also tried putting it in the microwave, and that worked out pretty well. I kind of like that.
Very nice.
I've got a, what do you call those, testers, the battery operated ones where you can test for moisture. And yeah, I kind of like using that microwave. It worked out pretty good.
I use
that's not a bad way to go.
Use the scales. That's easy. You don't have to. I don't trust those battery operated moisture testers. I do it by weight.
Well, that's a whole other topic for another time. Don, you still got your hand up. You want to try it again?
I'll try that next week, John. But what I wanted to show you was something I finished this morning. If you can put me back on.
You are on.
Highlight.
You were. There you go.
Am I there?
Nice.
That's a good example of turning thick deliberately because it wants to be heavy.
Yes. Now
That's
that.
nice.
Now, how did you attach the stone part to the handle?
I drilled a hole in the worktop. This is kitchen worktop. 2 pieces glued together. Put it on the lathe, drilled a hole, piece of oak, dowel, about 1 inch long, glued it in, and turned the.
Yeah. What is the dark wood again? Is that a dark wood?
No, that's Corian, or a type of Corian.
Corian, okay.
Can you turn that on a lathe?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, turn that on the lathe. But there's the pestle. I hope you can see inside. You see the black?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is that.
Ah. Okay.
Nice.
Now that you've got a nice solid base to be able to use your pestle and mortar.
Wait a minute. How did you get that stuff in the bowl? What did you do?
Right. I got my block of wood. I worked out my position for it. I cut it in half after I put a spigot on so I could put it in the chuck. I then turned, before I did that, I turned the piece of Corian to a round, glued that into the base of my base part of the wood with possibly 1/4 inch of it sticking out. I then reversed the top piece onto the lathe and fitted that in, and then I glued it all together. Wow. And then turned it afterwards.
What kind of glue do you use? What kind of glue do you use, Don?
I used, to glue the ceramic part to the wood, I used CA glue.
Oh.
But the actual wood, I used Type Bond. Okay. Type Bond 3. And the joint is the middle of those 3 lines.
Of course, yeah.
Of course, that's cheating, Don.
Cheated.
That's a great idea.
It was literally finished this morning, and there's the base.
That's beautiful. What kind of wood is that?
That's oak, English oak.
Hey, I have a question. I asked about the glue because I keep getting worried that CA gets brittle over time, right?
Yeah.
I keep worrying when I use it in wood, like when I glue a burl piece back on, will it eventually break off on its own?
Yeah.
Or will it hold?
No, it
The
won't.
other glue I use is an Evo stick exterior glue. Instead of, because I find it, if it's exterior, it's going to be stronger than interior.
Yeah, yeah.
Type Bond 3 seems to manage most of these.
Yes, yeah. But that's just a piece I finished this morning. And then,
Well,
of course,
Don, I gotta say, I'm really delighted that you join us every week, and you always bring something remarkable. You're an amazing guy.
Thank you.
And a delight to get to know you.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased to meet all of you guys because you've inspired me to carry on. I was 85 a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still working as if I was 65.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you very much for bringing me into your group of professionals and amateur turners.
So who's the oldest dude in the room? Ron, are you older than 85?
He's not going to say.
No,
Well,
he's
you
muted.
know, I always said I like to have friends that are older than me. That way I know what's ahead. And I just added 10 years onto my expectation of turning wood. Thanks, Don.
There you go. Thank you all for another delightful Woodturners Weekly Coffee Hour. We'll see you all next Thursday.
John, I just
Thanks, John.
Here, everybody.
Before I go,
Thank you.
I'm trying to screen save.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.